Welcome, everyone. My name is Seth Malone. I've been a good friend of Sabeel over the last several years. I started working there or started getting to know them when I worked with Mennonite Central Committee in Palestine. That was about 2 years ago. I worked there for 2 years. Since then, I've moved back to the United States and have been working on other things, but Sabeel and Kumi are still close to my heart. I was one of the original editors to work on the book. So I'm really happy to join you guys today and host this session. Thank you for joining us for the 18th Kumi Now online gathering. Before we begin, we have a few housekeeping points to cover so that the session can run very smoothly. First, this session is being broadcast on Facebook Live. If you don't wish to appear, please turn off your video feed. We would also love it if you could quickly share the Facebook post on Facebook so that others may join. We will also be muting everyone during the session, except for me, and for those other people who are speaking and presenting today. You will not be able to unmute yourself. If you wish to ask a question of the speakers, please type it into the chat box. When it comes to the Q&A portion, we will use those questions in the shared chat. I will ask them and I will host that Q&A session. If you have any technical issues, please use the chat to message the Kumi team privately, and we will try to help you with those technical issues. We hope that you will find the session interesting and informative. And I'd like to start by having everyone you'll be seeing today introduce themselves. Omar, can you go first?
Yes, my name is Omar Harami, and I've been part of the Sabeel family for 14 years, and I will be giving you a news update from Palestine, Israel, for a few minutes at the beginning of the session. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you, Seth.
Of course. Ibrahim?
Yes, good evening or good morning, everybody. My name is Ibrahim. I guess I have seen some of your faces before in Palestine. I work at the JAI. I'm from Beit Sahor. I have been at the JAI for the last 17 years. I am the media officer and the youth exchange programs coordinator.
Great, thank you. Muhanad?
Yeah, good evening, good morning, everyone. I'm Muhanad Al-Qaisy. I'm from Bethlehem. I grew up in the Haitian refugee camp, so I spent all my life in Bethlehem. I work at the JAI since 7 years. I run the Olive Tree campaign. And beside this, I travel around the world, just giving lectures about Palestine and about our work. And also I run two projects, like 2 programs for the campaign, the olive planting and the olive picking programs. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. So today you'll get to learn about the destruction of olive trees as we partner with the Joint Action Initiative, JAI, of the East Jerusalem YMCA and YWCA of Palestine. But first, we'd like to say a big thank you to all who have attended one or more of our Kumi Now online gatherings over the last several months. It has been so incredibly inspiring and touching to be able to bring activists and organizations face to face with each other. We've seen old friends, made new ones, and put faces to many of the people we used to only see as, email addresses. So clearly there is purpose and meaning in an ongoing platform, such as the Kumi Now online gatherings. And we look forward to learning from our successes and our mistakes. Today's gathering with JAI will be our final such gathering for the time being. We are not, however, resting. We will now turn our attention to finishing version 2 of Kumi Now. And much work has gone into revising and expanding our text and thinking on how we can build on what we've done over the last several years. If you have an honest feedback on Kumi Now, from the book to the website, to the newsletter, to these gatherings, feel free to drop us an email at kumi@kuminow.com. That's kumi@kuminow.com. In the next week or two, we will also be sending out a feedback form through the Kumi Now mailing list. Now, before we get to JAI and today's topic, I'd like to invite Omar to give us an update on the realities of the ground in Palestine. Oh, Omar?
Thank you, Seth. So this is an update on the recent developments in the last week that have been happening in the country, in the Holy Land. With COVID-19, Israel just reached over 2,000 deaths, close to 2020, the last number, unfortunately, last night. And in Palestine, the PA has announced over 560 deaths. The cases are on average in all of the Holy Land, close to 2,500 on average. That's 75% less than before a month. So with winter approaching, COVID-19 remains a reality. For people who, it hasn't been making it major to the major news headlines, but Maher Al-Akhras who's 49 years old, he is under administrative detention. He's for 80 days under hunger strike. Last week, his wife joined the hunger strike, and we just received news that his life is threatened. He's 80 days is a long period of time for people to go without food. So please hold him in your prayers. And what he is doing, he's standing against administrative detention. That means he's saying either you charge me or you let me go. Israeli courts use the Israeli military occupation forces use administrative detention to blackmail and to place pressure on Palestinian activists. Settler attacks are on the rise. In a number of places today, there was a very big attack close to Ramallah, where Israeli settlers, with the protection of the Israeli army, they've attacked a number of Palestinian farmers. There were also attacks in Salfit during this week, burning lots of olive trees, stealing the crops of the Palestinian farmers. But I'm sure we will be hearing more and more from today from GII. But this is the season of the olive harvest, and the attacks are on the rise. Recently, a number of new signs Israel has been constructing, and it says exactly, if you cannot read it, this road leads to Yitzhar, which is an Israeli settlement. Entrance for Arabs is dangerous. So this is not like an Israeli settler organization that's placing them. The Israeli army is placing it. It's like it's a threatening Palestinians not to use Palestinian roads that Israeli settlers use. So literally, it continues to be pushing into a very clear apartheid system. Very troubling, because many of the roads inside the West Bank, there's so many settlements inside the West Bank. And that means that Palestinians will not have any access to any road if the same momentum continues. Today, they have, Israel announced that they are building 500 new housing units in settlements. Few days ago, they've also announced another 2,500, 3,000 this week at least, that Israel has announced that they are building and constructing new settlements. The week before it, there was also another announcement with 5,000 housing units. So it's the building of settlements is on the rise in unprecedented matters. Since only in the last week, 42 homes and Palestinian structures have been destroyed. Only in the last week, 42. That's a very large number, and you can find out a report from the United Nations. They've just announced that this is very troubling. Never has the home demolitions have reached this extent since the beginning of COVID. It continues to be on the rise, and last week was unfortunately was unprecedented. Aisawiya is a Palestinian area in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, occupied East Jerusalem. And also, it's 42 Palestinians were arrested since the beginning of the month only in this small village. on a daily basis, there's over 70 Palestinians are getting arrested on a daily basis. Out of the 42 people who were arrested from Isawiyah, 19 are minors. This is a very huge number. And tension is on the rise. People are tense. It seems that, especially with the stubbornness of Netanyahu, and I mean it is with Trump in the White House, Israel continues to feel that they are immune. There's an impunity for Israel according to the international standards. So thank you for bearing with me, and I go back to Seth.
Thank you, Omar. Now, with that update of the realities on the ground, I'd like to turn it over to our guests from the JAI, Ibrahim and Muhanad. You're welcome to take the floor and give your presentation now.
All right, thank you, Seth. So I'll be briefing you in summary, or in like just a briefing about who we are as a JAI, the Joint Advocacy Initiative, including our main campaign, the Olive Tree campaign. And the briefing will include the various measures and attacks on the olive trees and fields and farmers in Palestine, and especially in the olive harvest season we are currently in, and what these attacks means, and what the olive trees mean for the Palestinians from a social, cultural, religious, and economic perspective. So for some of you who have been to Palestine or who have been with the JAI or know about the campaign, this is also just to refresh your memory. For the others, this is a good chance to get to know about us. So I'll be sharing the screen. And again, if anybody has any a question, feel free to do so, at the question and answers time. So we are, as a JAI, we are a program of the YWCA of Palestine and the East Jerusalem YMCA, which is the Palestinian YMCA, who have joined together in an advocacy program called the Joint Advocacy Initiative. So this is where the name JAI comes from. So as an advocacy program, to advocate for a certain cause, in like anywhere in the world, first of all, you need to raise the people's awareness about what's going on. You need to give them information, statistics, what's going on the ground. But for us, this is not enough. This is a first stage, To advocate, we need to get people engaged or activated or involved in making a change. So this is what we do. We have developed campaigns and initiatives and activities and actions to get people involved in order to create activists and solidarity groups worldwide, who in turn will influence decision makers in their countries, communities, movements, churches, bodies, which will in turn as well, influence, like the political decisions of their governments or of their big bodies, to put pressure on Israel to force it to end the occupation and to achieve peace with justice in Palestine and Israel. So how do we do this? The first stage, the education and information, we use first the conventional media, the printed, electronic newsletters, websites, social media. We organize programs and do guided tours in Palestine for various international delegations. So we usually have like 10 to 15 international delegations. This was not the case this year, of course, unfortunately. We also train Palestinian teenagers and youth and facilitate their participation in international gatherings and student or youth exchange programs to share their experience, to share their life under occupation, and to communicate Palestine. So this is part of raising awareness. So these are some pictures of our training of students, our students and youth giving presentations in other countries, meeting students and youth in visiting Palestine and communicating how they live under occupation, planting trees together, participating in international gatherings, festivals, events in other countries. Then we move to the next stage, which is to engage people and activate them. And for this, we have developed our main campaign, which is the Olive Tree campaign, which I will tell in more details about afterwards. And we are also part of, I guess some of you or most of you might know about the Kairos Palestine Initiative or call, as well as the Palestinian and global boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign. So I will tell more in details about, the Olive Tree campaign. We initiated it, or we started it as an advocacy tool, as I mentioned, but this is in the international level. On the local level, this campaign is to help counter the Israeli measures on the ground. So I'll tell you in brief about these measures, or some or most of these measures. So the fields or the farmers we work with or we target are mostly in Area C, under the full Israeli military control. And these farmers cannot easily access to their fields. They always need to prove the ownership of their land at the Israeli military centers or Israeli police. The Israeli police or military commander, actually, they ask these farmers to obtain permissions to get to their fields. Like in the last 2 weeks, the military commander, they released the list of areas where the farmers or landowners need to apply for permission and what certain dates they can be at their fields and certain times and so on. Most farmers actually would not apply for such permissions because they believe if they do so, they will legalize the Israeli control of their land. They make it legal, or they approve that, they are controlling their land and they need to always obtain permissions. Even for the ones who have permissions or, the ones who apply for permissions, again, it's only for certain days, certain times, and for certain people to be at the field. And in many cases, they have to cross gates or checkpoints to get to their fields. The Israeli military also declared closed military areas. And this is usually done with various justifications or reasons they give. They could say this is state land, security reasons. This field happens to be close to an Israeli colony or settlement. This is an archaeological site. This is a military training area, and so on and so forth. So they could give tons of justifications to landowners and farmers to close certain area. This is beside the land confiscation or annexation or fencing off. So in fact, the annexation plan, it never like stopped or never even delayed. So it's an ongoing process. The Israeli military and settlers have been annexing Palestinian land from the Jordan Valley to other areas in Bethlehem, in Ramallah, in Nablus, in Hebron. So this actually never stopped, even though it's not in the media anymore. Many fields are also happen to be in what's called the buffer zones. These are the areas between the Israeli wall or the fence and the green line. So we're talking about communities or fields where the farmers cannot get to their land at all. Lately, actually, or during last week, 130 military zones were declared as buffer zones by the Israeli military. Settlements are also, they are constructed on farmers' land, private property land, farmers' land, either on the farmer's land itself or very close to it, putting the land under high threat of being confiscated due to a settlement expansion, the construction of new housing unit, as Omar just said. Lately, the Israeli government have approved the construction of 5,400 new housing units. Half of these will be constructed actually in the Bethlehem area where we stay. So this is a threat to the land. Israeli soldiers and settlers also, they attack olive trees on almost daily basis. This includes the destruction of land, the uprooting of trees, the chopping of trees, and as Omar said, if you follow our Facebook page, the Olive Tree Campaign, we both reported the news of attacks. Only in the last 2 days, there have been like 10 incidents, I guess, or more than 10 incidents of attacks on olive trees and farmers. So the chopping of trees, they burn olive trees, they spray poison on trees and fruits. Also, there are measures that actually reduce the productivity of the olive tree. This includes not allowing farmers to easily cultivate or fertilize their lands or prune the olive tree. This is actually before the harvest or during the year. Settlers or settlements release their sewage water into Palestinian fields and olive trees, and this actually reduces the productivity of the olive trees. Farmers are not allowed to construct water wells to collect the rainwater in winter in order to use it for the summer. If you happen to construct a new water well, the Israeli military will discover this using, in many cases, they use even satellite images to discover this. They will come and destroy it. Even if you have an old water well in your field that is before 1967, and they happen to discover it or know about it, they will come and destroy it. If you try to bring water to your field and the trees, they will prevent you from doing so. They will confiscate the water. They will size the water tanks if you have water tanks at your field already. During the harvest season, again, as also Omar Little mentioned, settlers, they attack olive fields. They come to the Palestinian fields and trees. They steal olive fruits of Palestinian trees. They attack Israeli settlers or army. They attack Palestinian families while they're picking their olives. They prevent them from accessing their land. They come, usually settlers will come with their big machine guns, and they will be supported by the Israeli military. So the Israeli military will be there to make sure settlers will do whatever they want without being stopped by the Palestinians. They would beat the Palestinian family, they will stone them, they will shoot at them, or they will ask the Israeli army to arrest them. So this is why, the international presence usually in such times and conditions gives some level of protection to these families and farmers. So based on these measures, we believed and we thought that there is a need for land protection. And again, as an advocacy mechanism and tool to get people involved or engaged, we have developed the Olive Tree Campaign. So this is how the campaign is developed. Just also quickly why we talk about olive trees. We talk about that the olive trees are important for Palestinians. It's a symbol of their resistance and how Palestinians are rooted in their land. For many farmers, they look at the trees as their children. If they lose one of their trees, as if they're losing one of their children. Most of them, they have inherited these trees from their parents and ancestors, and they believe it's their duty to pass these trees to their children and grandchildren. For the farmers and for the Palestinians in general, the olive trees have a cultural, have the cultural values, social values. There are various, even like poems and songs about the olive trees. It's it's believed to be a blessed tree for both Christians and Muslims in Palestine. It's mentioned in the Quran and the Bible. Many farmers depend on olive trees to live, although many farmers, most of them, they have other jobs, unfortunately, simply because some of them might have lost their land, they have lost their trees, they are unable to market their olives easily as before. Besides having the standards of living in Palestine increased in the last 20-25 years, so they need another source of income for the family. According to the statistics, 14% of the Palestinian economy depend on olive trees, and this includes the fruits. People bake. The oil, the olive oil we get from the trees, the olive wood. When the farmers prune the old branches from the tree, they give it to the factory that make olive wood carvings, and also from the yeasts of the olives for heating. Lately, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Agriculture, which this was in the news 2 days ago, the yields of this season are expected to be 40%, unfortunately, compared to last year, including which means for 15 tons of olive oil compared to 40 tons last year. So how does the olive tree campaign affect, or what's the impact of the campaign on the farmers and the landowners? So the olive tree campaign is about having people sponsor olive trees to be planted in these threatened fields and land in villages and on the land that is happen to be close to settlement, the wall. The farmers get frequently attacked by settlers and so on. For the farmers or for the land, having internationally sponsored trees planted in a certain land gives it some level of protection. So for the settlers and soldiers, they will think 10 times, or they will hesitate before they attack a field, knowing that if we attack this field, those international sponsors will know, or those who have planted these trees, they will know, and then they will complain, they will write to the media, they will make trouble for the Israelis, and the Israelis do not want this. So this is how the campaign works, to protect the land. Of course, it doesn't mean 100% that the fields will not be attacked, but it gives it some high level of protection. For the farmers, which is very important, having international sponsored trees in their fields make them feel that they are people who care about us. They are people who know about our story. They are people who stand with the Palestinians. And this keeps hope alive for the farmers or for the Palestinians, who many of them, unfortunately, believe that nobody cares or nobody listens to us. So this is the chance to tell them, no, there are people who actually listen to you and they care about you. And if anything happens to your trees or land, those people will know immediately. And they will, make activities and actions. From a development perspective, also, many farmers, the farmers we give trees to, many of them have lost some of their old olive trees. So they have lost a large part of their family income. So when we give them the new, sponsored trees, this is somehow a compensation, or, when they start producing olives, this will make them regain the income they might have lost with the uprooting or the destruction of their trees. As my colleague Muhanad said also, every year we organize an olive planting and olive picking program. The planting program is usually in February, and the picking program is in October each year. We get international participants where we go and pick olives in threatened fields in Palestine. So these international participants, again, form some level of protection to the family while they pick the olives, so that they will not get attacked or harassed by the settlers or the Israeli army. Besides having these participants listen to the farmer's story and how they live under occupation and the attacks and the measures they are subjected to. And the programs are open for anybody from all nationalities, all ages or background, religions, whatever. People can join if they are 10 years old or 8 years old to 120 years old. It's fine with us. So for all the fields we support with the sponsored olive trees, we put a plaque of the names of the sponsors. Each year, hundreds of farmers approach the JI. They are, asking or wanting to get the internationally sponsored trees. Of course, they want the internationally sponsored ones, not just any trees they can buy in the market or they can get from the Ministry of Agriculture, because they want the protection, behind these sponsored trees. So all the applications we get are of fields that are under a high threat of confiscation. Unfortunately, we have to select every year. We usually select 150 to 160 fields of farmers, and we distribute around 11 to 12,000 sponsored trees. This year we are expecting, or this coming season, we are expecting to distribute a little more. It could reach up to 20,000 olive trees. So we will be selecting more fields. To conclude, the olive tree campaign for us is a soft, creative, resistant mechanism where people worldwide can be involved in making a change from home. With the increasing attacks and measures, the demand, the number of farmers who approach us increases. So they're demanding more sponsored trees. Hence, we see or we believe that more sponsorships are required to counter the colonization or counter these measures and protect Palestinian land for the farmers. And the most important also for us is to keep hope alive for the farmers and their families and for the Palestinians in general. So this is in brief. So I will just pass I'll pass it now to Muhanad, to my colleague, to give you more some personal experience and also personal stories of based on his work on the field and closely with the farmers.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. Hi, everyone. Hello again. Yeah, I think, in addition to what Ibrahim said, we live in a situation where in the West Bank, where we are living, where we practice every day, our daily life, there is around 750 Israeli settlers living with us. And there's more than, I would say, 300 Israeli settlements and outposts. And the places where we live, or the cities where we live, if I want to take Bethlehem as an example, we only access 14% of the district, which is area A, where we can live and build houses and just go to our work. The rest, which is about 85% of the city, is under the Israeli control. And actually there, where are the olive trees, where the farmer go, where all the attacks happens. And if we look at general, there is more 85% of the West Bank under the Israeli control. That's why we experience in such days, like in the olive harvest days, a lot of attacks because Israelis are controlling this area C. So Bethlehem is surrounded by 24 Israeli settlements, and we only access a very little amount of the lands in the city. So if I want to take El-Walaja village, for example, they built many settlements around the village, and now the village is completely isolated. And now we are having hundreds of farmers who are trying to reach to their fields, and then the Israeli put a fence between these farmers and their trees. And in the same time, these farmers, since many years, hundreds of years, them and their families before, they own these lands, and we all know, and they have the ownership papers, and the Israeli knows. But with the power, they come on reality, and then they put these fences, and then they put these gates, and then they can give it an excuse like, okay, there is like security reasons, it's a buffer zone, while at the same time we can see the Israeli settlers who has no connection or who have no connection with this land coming and accessing our water spring, accessing the lands, accessing the mountains, and build beautiful houses. Actually, this year we are experiencing a big amount of attacks against the Palestinian farmers, starting from up north Jenin all the way to Hebron. Every day on Facebook, every day we have connection in the fields. Today, for example, a lot of attacks happen near Burqa. Maybe you saw this. Settlers, there is no one to stop them. Actually, they are supported by the Israeli soldiers and army, facing the Palestinians while they are going to their fields to pick the olives. Another attack, for example, today happened in Al-Jab'a in the west of Bethlehem. And I have been witnessing this by my eyes. What I see is Palestinian ordinary families going to their field and to their lands to pick their olives, while at the same time, we see a group of settlers, most of them are armed, just coming to the field and attacking. And, if the army there or like the police came, if we called them and then they came, they would directly stand on the side of the Israeli settlers, and then they will offer them security. And actually they will push them toward the Palestinian to take their olives or to kick them out of the field. Why it happens? Because the Israeli government know that they are letting these settlers to go into the streets because they want to achieve their aim, which is taking the land from the Palestinians. If you look at the photo from outside the box or at the general look, you will see that it's a combination project between the Israeli settlers and between the government and between many other sectors and parts, all working together in order to attack the poor Palestinian farmer and to take his land and to convert it to an Israeli settlement. So now, if you look around Bethlehem, you'll see like new highways are being built or constructed, in the middle of our lands and our landscapes. And then they can give it the excuse, okay, it's for security reasons, or we need this big, huge land because we need a road. And the people at the same time, like they don't have the power to stop them. So I think this year in particular, this is the last point I want to mention, and then we can maybe discuss some questions and answers. The point this year why there's a big attacks in the news is that because we don't have the international volunteers who comes every year to stand with the Palestinians in their fields. And I was thinking about it all the 2 or 3 weeks, why this, since the harvest started, why this year there is a big attacks. And actually today I remembered, okay, there's no international cover for them. And that's part of our campaign. In some years we used to bring 100. We have a cluster group with the United Nations and many other organizations where we bring a lot of volunteers, internationals and locals. And every year we go to the field to stand with the farmers and to help them. And always the presence of the internationals was useful because they could stop any attack from the settlers or the soldiers. But this year, unfortunately, because of the COVID, we don't have this presence. And if you like on pages or following the news from Palestine, you will see definitely since 1 week, the numbers of the attacks against the Palestinian farmers are much higher than the previous years, because they know we kind of left alone in our fields and there's no one to protect us. So they know that they have the right or they have the power this time. It's their turn to come and to run after the Palestinian farmers and to take their fruits and their olives. I think we can go for questions maybe, or depends on the team.
Yes, we have time for questions. Since you're all muted, please type your questions into the chat box and I will read those off to our speakers. To start, Gil asks, how do Israelis know which olive trees are sponsored?
Yes, I can answer this. Okay, each field that we plant, we put a plaque with the names of the sponsors. So if the Israeli settlers or the Israeli army passing by or they are thinking to attack this land, then at the beginning of each field, we put this plaque saying that these trees were sponsored by people who support peace or just like support Palestinians, and all the names of the sponsors. So that's a big sign of our fields. Another one is that sometimes we send the international volunteers to plant these fields. So obviously for the soldiers and the settlers who are living in the settlement, they would see the international coming, the volunteers, and then they will know or find out it's a land planted by organization, not by the farmer by himself.
Great, thank you. I have another question from Marie. So the internationals cannot come, because of COVID, but what about Israeli activist groups? Can they not come either?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
In fact, in the last, I have been with the GI for the last 17 years. I don't remember we were ever contacted by Israeli activists who would like to join the olive planting or picking. I mean, for us, we don't mind, and we would love to have them join our programs. Of course, if they are here, not just for the media purpose, if they're here to actually, work together with the Palestinians to, again, they're against what their government is doing and against what their settlers are doing. But yeah, I mean, but I mean, also, and during these conditions with the coronavirus, I believe also, Israeli activists would be also worried, and they cannot also easily move from Israel to the West Bank and back. There's also some kind of like lockdown, within Israel.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Mariana and George ask, they say, I'm wondering if we could be an international presence by writing letters to the editor in our local newspaper and talking about how during this time of COVID, Palestinian farmers are experiencing more attacks from settlers. Do you agree with that, or do you have other ideas about how people could be a presence?
I mean, we have on our website actually, or we send it also, from time to time, like a list or suggested actions people can do that could vary from writing letters to the media, to their parliament members, government, Israeli embassies in their countries, to give presentations about Palestine in churches, schools, universities, big gatherings, and also to do some practical actions, including sponsorship of olive trees, to make candle vigils, demonstrations. So there are various actions. I mean, we can send people a list, or it's already on our website.
Okay, great. Hillary asks, similar to another question, are rabbis for human rights able to support this year or not?
Yeah, I can answer this. I think Rabbis for Human Rights also a partner in the cluster group that related to the United Nations. So we have like a group of organizations that come together every year, especially in the harvest season, and then we kind of divide the work. So I think they work more in the north or south, and so we stand and we say, okay, we will cover Bethlehem, because especially this year, there will be like not enough numbers to cover all the need from the farmers. So we trying to find alternatives. And one of these alternatives is to use local students or local groups from YMCA, YWCA, universities, just to cover or like to make up for the presence of the internationals in a way, actually. But we can't fully cover it because it's security cover also.
But yeah, it's important to clarify that when it comes to the olive picking or the planting programs or the internationals who come to support the farmers, it's not only about the physical work they give to the farmers. It's about that they are actually internationals, and having them being internationals, this makes the settlers or Israeli army hesitate to attack them or kick them out of the field, or attack the farmer's family in front of the internationals, because they want to look nice in front of internationals.
Great, thank you. Mary Starkey asks, can we sponsor from the UK, or do we sponsor Zaytun? as well? Or are you, yeah. Can you sponsor olive trees from the UK?
Yes, actually, yeah, our one of the main countries that support the olive tree campaign is the UK, because we have our partner there, Embrace the Middle East, and we can send you all the information about it. So if you just go online, contact Embrace the Middle East or YCare International, they are our partner there, and easily you can just sponsor an olive tree. Every year we get around 2,000 olive trees from Embrace. They're sponsored by British or like from the UK mainly.
And how much is it to sponsor an olive tree?
It's $20 US.
$20 US.
Yeah, and it covers all the costs of the trees and all, like the you know, all the what also we give to the farmers beside the tree, the blades, transportation, all these. And you know, because we also don't have online mechanism for sponsorships, we also depend on our partners like Embrace and other partners for those who are willing to do online sponsorship, you know, using their credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any like great success stories of this program, like a farmer that you remember was really impacted by the program?
Muhanad, yeah.
Yes, there is many. Actually, the most thing that inspired me in this project is that when I know there is some families who own or own lands inside the Israeli settlement, so they access the settlement and they're still in touch in their lands, because the Israeli use a law: if you don't plant your land for 3-4 years, 5 years, then Israel can convert this land to a state land. So what these farmers did, they managed to handle all the harassment, all the punishment, all the stress from the Israeli settlers and the army, and they kept the land while it's inside the Israeli settlement. And they were supported by the organization where I work, by the YMCA, with so many olive trees. And then they get all these trees inside the Israeli settlement, and it still protect the land and access to the land. I consider this is the most successful issues or stories that I have seen through my work or during my work.
Yeah, and you feel like the settlement is a little bit hesitant to approach that land because of, you know, the international presence.
Yes, also because it's inside the settlement, but the Palestinian farmer still can access inside the settlement and take care of his land and then go back out of the settlement. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for our speakers?
The people asking about Al-Walaja and about do we expect to be able to welcome internationals?
Yeah. So do you think you will have a olive harvest campaign that internationals can join in 2021?
Actually, we are you know, we have posted invitation for the olive planting program in February. So hopefully we'll be able to organize this and have international participants join. So we hope things will be better, you know, before February 2021. So this will be from the 6th to the 15th of February, the olive planting program. And hopefully we will also be able to organize the olive picking program in October next year.
Does the YMCA Canada and the other affiliates, do they support your campaign or your office?
Yes, not YMCA Canada actually, but there's the Presbyterian Church in Canada, and we are trying to partnership with YMCA in Canada. So please, if you know anyone in the YMCA, we would love to make a partnership and to agree on some work together.
Yeah, that's a good advocacy action for those who are based in Canada. Is it correct that the Israeli High Court has ruled that the IDF can allow farmers to access their land? Am I reading that question correctly? There's a Israeli High Court. Hillary Tyrell. Is it true that the Israeli High Court ruled that the IDF has to allow Palestinian farmers to access their land. Is that true?
Actually, I can answer this. Every year, even from the Israeli High Court or not, every year the Israeli office, the coordination office of each city, put a schedule for the farmers, which with certain days to go and to pick their olives from their fields. But the problem is, we can send you a copy of this program. So let's say Muhanad, me, I have a piece of land, which is 10 dunams, and I have 100 olive trees. They would give me the permit, or they allow me to get in behind the gate or the wall for 1 day or 2 days, and only 2 members of the family. These can only pick 2 or 3 olive trees, but they can't finish the work. So on papers and for the international community, Israel look like they are democracy, they are giving the right for the people, they are not discrimination country, but on the ground, because we know this, they don't give you enough time or enough people to go inside and to take care of your trees or to pick them. And that's the game, how they make themselves look like, organized or, legal country, but actually on the ground, it's different.
Yeah, I've heard that it's like they only let like the family member whose title, of the land. So the great grandfather goes
95 years old man,
Yeah, and he can't pick all the olive trees, but his family
he's
can't
not able
him.
to work in the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, Seth and everybody, just about when people sponsor olive trees and when we distribute the trees and put the flakes and everything, afterwards, like in 2 or 3 months afterwards, people can go on our website online. People can put their names and search and find where the field is, with the like a map location. They can read the story of the field. They can see pictures of the field. So each person who have sponsored olive trees can search for his or her name online, whether it's an individual name or a church or school or a group of people.
Great. Thank you. I think it's time to move on from question and answer. Thank you very much for your thoughtful and insightful answers to our questions. So we'd like to move on to a prayer. So if you can all just in your hearts pray and think about Palestine and what the work of the JAI. I'm going to lead us in prayer real quick. Lord, we thank you for the olive harvest, and we pray that Palestinian farmers may safely gather their harvest without attack, without hindrance from the Israeli army or settlers. We thank you for the work of JAI and the way they support the livelihoods of the Palestinian farmers. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers. Amen.
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 So this is the fun part. This is the core of Kumi. We're going to talk about the Kumi Action. It's great for all of us to learn about, the regular, well, it's not great, but it's interesting to learn about the regular destruction of olive trees. But we also want to empower people to act on their knowledge. With this in mind, we've created an advocacy action that anyone around the globe can participate in. It will be posted in the chat and is also available on the website. This week, we'd like you to plant or name a tree in your garden and or your front of your house, place of worship, institution, like a school, wherever, in an act of solidarity for Palestine. You can call it a tree of hope for peace with justice around the world, an idea from Palestinian farmers, and place a sign in front of the tree for everyone to see. That's something you can do locally. We also encourage everyone to sponsor an olive tree in Palestine. The $20 US dollars sponsorship covers the cost of the young plant, distribution, planting, and information for the farmers and the best techniques for olive tree care and production improvement. The cost also covers an official certificate, a sponsor label to be inscribed with the sponsor's name, and which will be put up in the field where the tree is planted, as well as miscellaneous implementation costs of the project. Every sponsor receives a certificate of appreciation from the Joint Advocacy Initiative or partner organization in the sponsor's respective country, in addition to having their names put up on a plaque in the field where the trees are planted. Sponsorship records are available online as well, so people can type their name in and find out where their tree is planted. To sponsor an olive tree, you can simply go to the website that will be shared in the chat and follow the instructions. Our email will also be shared in the chat. Whether you plant your own tree or sponsor one, take photos and share what you've done, encouraging others to do likewise. Post your photos on social media, along with the message, I planted or sponsored this tree for Palestinian farmers. Include a link to this page of the Kumi Now website, along with the hashtags, hashtag Tree of Hope, hashtag Kumi Now, and hashtag Kumi52. Ibrahim and Muhanad, do you have any thoughts about the Kumi Action or other ways that people watching this session can do what they've, apply what they've learned today?
So just what was mentioned is great, which we actually stated, like we wrote about before, is to take actions of solidarity, planting the trees, sponsor olive trees, encourage others, in your community, churches, the people to visit Palestine if they can, sponsor olive trees, to, share the information with your friends, colleagues, and so on. And of course, if people can, we would love to have people join the olive planting, the coming olive planting or the olive picking programs in Palestine, to come and, visit farmers, meet those farmers, support them, not necessarily physically or financially, just be with them in the field, listen to their stories. They would love to see internationals coming to visit them and be present with them in their lands.
Great. Muhanad, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I like when also people work on in their countries about the Palestinian cause. I know that every one of you guys have an opportunity to raise awareness about what's happening in Palestine. We need more individual people around the Palestinian cause. So that's one I would add to what Ibrahim said, is just to work on raising awareness, like sharing this Zoom we have, sharing other articles with family, just sending emails and sharing information that you learn about Palestine with people that didn't hear about us, or they didn't know anything about Palestine. Because when we travel, we see this, like you say Palestine, some people shock me by saying Pakistan. No, Palestine. I want you to know that it's Palestine. That's at least something we can ask for, in addition to what Ibrahim said.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. You can always travel and everything, but some of the most important work is what you do in your local community.
Yeah,
with your neighbors and friends. Thank you both. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about next week and what to expect. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for being with us for the past several months as we brought organization and activists together for Palestine. As I said at the beginning, we're now going to take a break from these online gatherings so that we can dedicate our time to finalizing our plans for version 2 of Kumi Now. Many hours, days, weeks have been gone into revising and expanding the book, and we have some exciting ideas we can't wait to share with you. If you'd like to stay updated on this big update to Kumi Now, and you aren't already on the Kumi Now mailing list, you can head to the website, which will be posted in the chat, but it's kuminow.com/register to sign up. Now, if you'd like to see what we've done today, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could help spread the word to friends and family, classes and church groups, and online through social media. You can share our past gatherings and watch them for yourselves by heading to kuminow.com /online-archives /. That's also going to be copied into the link. So many links. We've heard from people who have used these videos with church and social groups, and it feels good knowing that these sessions are being used to train the next generation of activists for Palestinians. We've heard the formal, we reached the formal end of the meeting, but if you'd like to hang around, our guests have answered a few questions, you know, but they're going to be available for a little bit longer for informal question and answer. During that time, you'll be able to unmute yourself. We just ask that you raise your hand if you wish to speak. You can do so by clicking on the participants on the bottom of your screen and then on raise hand. We will call on you and you'll have a minute to speak. We know people have a lot of other online meetings and responsibilities, so please don't feel obligated to hang around. We'll also be saying goodbye to anyone watching on Facebook, and we'll end the recording at this time. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.